This is an MCP 5-minute moment brought to you by the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection's Bureau of Waste Site Cleanup. The Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection has over 40,000 reported releases of oil or hazardous material. You may be interested in information about these releases, perhaps because you're interested in buying that piece of property, perhaps because you live or work nearby and want to know if there's any uncontrollable contamination that still remains on the property. There are a couple different ways of searching for information about these sites. In parts B and C, you'll learn how to use the searchable sites list and use Google to directly search for our documents. There are two important things to realize about the eDEP file viewer. First, the file viewer only gives you access to those documents that have come in through MassDEP's online submittal process called eDEP. Online submittal of documents has only been required by DEP since 2009, so in using this application, you may be missing older documents that were submitted to us on paper and were subsequently scanned and made available online. On the other hand, this database is continually updated. As soon as somebody hits the submit button through eDEP, the documents should appear in this file viewer within 15 minutes. So it is the most up-to-date source for recent files. The file viewer has limited search capability. You can search by release tracking number, which is unique to the individual site. You can search by date to find any submittals that come in within a certain time frame. And you can search by transaction ID, which is a unique identifier for each submittal made through eDEP. One of the most useful features is that you can also search by the waste site cleanup transmittal form that was used to make the submittal. We'll run through some example searches in a moment, but first I want to show you how to get to this file viewer. The mass.gov website is specifically designed to work well with search engines, so simply Google the words contaminated property Massachusetts. Find out about a contaminated property should appear very close to the top of the results. There's a lot of useful information on this page even before you get to the actual search function. If you're not familiar with the semi-privatized waste site cleanup program we have here in Massachusetts, the guide at the top of the page should be very helpful. Below that, you'll find two boxes which link to the actual search applications, one being the searchable sites application that we'll talk about in episode 93B, and one being the subject of this video, the eDEP file viewer. Below that, I would recommend downloading the PDF document Understanding the Search Results, which will help explain a lot of the information that you'll be seeing in the search application. You'll also see links to these instructional videos. Scrolling up the page, let's click on the eDEP file viewer box. So now we'll go through a couple example searches. First though, we'll zoom in a bit so you can read the writing a little bit better. You see on the left-hand side the ability to search by release tracking number, or RTN, by date and date ranges, and by the transaction ID. On the right-hand side, there's a list of the waste site cleanup transmittal forms. Let's start by searching using the release tracking number. Here I've entered the number 3, which is our Northeast region. By the way, number 1 is the Western region, 2 is the Central, and 4 is the Southeast region. I've randomly chosen the numbers 2, 3, 4 to fill out the rest of the release tracking number, and I've hit the search button. The results appear below the search box. We see that we have 51 results for the search for our 1 RTN. This list could go on for several pages for a site that has a lot of transactions and a lot of submittals. Zooming in, you can see that each transaction has a form associated with it, and then some of the transactions also have attached supporting documentation. Clicking on the transmittal form will bring up a PDF version of the document, and you can also click on the supporting documentation and view those. Keep in mind that while some of these files are very small, the arrow is pointing to one that's only 371 kilobytes. If you look down at the bottom of the page, there's also one that is about 14 megabytes. It's not uncommon to have even larger files, so it might take a long time to download if we click on it. We'll choose the smaller file for this example, click on it, and there it is. Searching by transaction ID is quick and easy if you happen to know the actual transaction ID, and that should result in finding one unique submittal. The search has become more interesting when you start combining different factors. For example, here we're looking for submittals for a particular site, RTN 3-234, but now we're only looking for those submittals that came in after January 1st of 2010. Looking at the results, we see that only 25 submittals have come in after that date, where when we did the search before, we saw a total of 51 submittals. If you don't put in a range, but only put in a starting date, it will automatically fill in today's date. If we modify this search and only look for submittals that have come in during the calendar year of 2010, we can narrow it down to only 8 records. Now let's be a little bit more creative. We're going to look for submittals that came into our Western Regional Office. Thus, we're going to put a 1 at the beginning of the RTN. Now we're going to look for submittals that were made between July 1st, 2014 and June 30th, 2015. That's fiscal year 2015. And we're only going to look for those submittals that came in accompanied by a BWSC 104 form. That's the transmittal form for permanent and temporary solution statements. You see there are 220 submittals that meet all of those criteria. You may not realize it, but MassDEP also uses the eDEP system to upload documents that we create. So let's take a look at documents that came in March 2016 that were uploaded by MassDEP itself. We use a particular transmittal form, BWSC 128, in order to upload our document. Pulling up one of those transmittal forms, you can see that we use the transmittal form to indicate what kind of document, what kind of attachment is being uploaded. Clicking on the attachment, we see that it is a technical screening audit checklist. So remember, while this file viewer only gives you access to submittals that were made electronically through eDEP and not the older scanned documents from our files, it is updated continually every day. And you can search by RTN, date, transaction ID, or type of transmittal form, or any combination of those items. So bookmark it today and let us know if you have any questions or suggestions.